today we are going to be having a conversation revolving around the subject of purpose, identity, and numbering your days. Purpose is the reason why anything exists. So when I say Omo, what comes to mind? Nikisema Omo. Ati? Washing. When I say shoe, what comes to mind? So when I say pen, writing, that means we understand that every single thing has a purpose. There is nothing that is put on any shelf, let's say like the supermarket shelf, that does not have a reason for existence. So if we believe that we are all created beings here, hakuna mtu hapa alijiumba, si ndio? Uli show up, ulijipata tu, uliland, then you grew up, regardless of where you grew up, and here you are, meaning you are someone's idea before you showed up here, si ndio? And if then there is nothing that exists without a purpose, what does that mean, and what does that say about you? What does it say about you? It says every single person here, whether it is Carol, whether it is Mr. Ndongo, has a reason for being. Your purpose is not mine. Njoroge's purpose somewhere here is not mine. There's a uniqueness that you carry, even if you might be called like in lines that seem similar. There's something that you can do that your colleague cannot, the way that you can do it. We say that there's no one man's fingerprint that is a replica of another, even twins. That's how unique you are. So when we understand that we did not just show up, we are not just existing and we have a purpose, we ought to live life from a different perspective. And that perspective begins with understanding, who then am I? Who am I? Do we have pens and papers? I will give you a minute to write who you think, write your definition of yourself. Right now, who you think you are. I want you to add 2 questions to that list. So if you've written who am I, and you're defining who am I, the second question is where did I come from? And the third question is, right now, at this moment in time, what is my definition of success? What does success look like to you? What is that thing that you think if you have, or that point that you attain, you can say, now I am successful? Do you have a definition of success? And if you do, what is it? Yes. Okay. Who wants to stand and give me an answer to just one of the 3 questions?
What is my definition of success? To me, it's the result of my efforts, whether minor or major. So long as it's a positive one, to me it's enough for progression.
Of all I've noted that success must be aligned. And adding on that, I know one thing about success is that embracing failure will always teach me how to maintain success. And that is how I become success.
Thank you so much for your responses. All of them are right. Now, I will begin with the first one, which is, who am I? I think only one person gave a response to that question. We began by stating that purpose refers to the reason why anything exists. So then we must be able to get the mind of the creator so that we can properly define the product, right? So in order to be able to adequately define who you are, you have to understand what was God's mind concerning you. Because the reason why this is critical and it is important is this: when you do not understand who you are, when you don't have a proper definition of who you are, where you want to go, and what success is, anything goes. There's so many things in culture that are warped. There are so many things in culture that can detour you off the path that God has for you. So if you do not define early who you are and where you want to go, there are many things that will take you to destinations that you might not have wanted to end up in the first place. One man said, if you take it, like any road will take you nowhere. For example, if I want to go to Nyeri, it will define if I'm taking a matatu, which matatu I am taking. It will define which road I am using. Why? I am clear in my mind of the kind of destination that I want. But if I don't know where I'm going, I will take any road and it will lead me to nowhere, because wherever I will arrive may not be of benefit to me. So it is important that you define these things early so that you know when to say no. When someone gives you suggestions about trying certain things and doing certain things, you can confidently say no when you have a picture in your mind of the kind of life that you want. I began by stating this verse that says, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Why? Because when you're young, you think life is long. But life is very finite. You will be amazed how you will blink and you will be 40. And then you blink again, you're 60. You blink again, you're 80, and you're very privileged to get to 80. Life is very brief. One man once said, at best, life is brief. If you're not intentional now, you will waste many seasons of your life. And at the end of your life, you will sit, you will look back. So if you sit now and look back, imagine you're 80. Can you imagine how the building up of your decisions have now brought you to that place where you're 80? Is it a life you'll be proud of with the decisions that you're going to make from here moving forwards? Because life is basically an aggregation of decisions. It builds up on one decision after another after another. There's no innocent decision. Every decision has repercussions, and every decision has an outcome. I'll ask Ashley, her name is Ashley, to read for me Genesis chapter 1, verse 26.
Genesis 1:26 says, Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth.
Yes. Let us make man in our image and likeness. What that means is this: at the very core, regardless of the assignment God has given you on earth, at the very core, the foundation of your identity is this: you are an expression of God on the earth. Because he said, let us make man in our image. You're a reflection. Somebody should be able to see you, look at your life, and learn something about God and experience something about God. Let us make man in our image and our likeness. That means the tendencies that sometimes come in us in this path of life under the sun, that do not have their origin in God, things that we picked up sometimes while growing up, things that we picked up in environments that we found ourselves in, are things we ought to work towards formatting so that we acquaint ourselves appropriately with the true definition of who we are. Because all of us have picked up something, because our mindsets are greatly influenced by our upbringing, by the relationships around us. When I say relationships, I'm referring to parents, siblings, uncles, friends, associations. They greatly influence the kind of mindset that we have. And if you're going to attain the true definition of success, we will get to that place of defining success, you must understand that there will be a need to work intentionally towards formatting the thoughts that we have and taking on that mindset that says we are a higher life form, if I may use that statement. We are a God kind on the earth. That uniqueness that you carry is required here. So let nobody tell you or speak down on you or tell you that you are nothing, because God defines you as his reflection. Yani he's saying, if you want to see what I look like, look at Kamau, look at Njoroge. And that goes beyond our physical features. It talks about a state of existence. There's a verse in the Bible that says that we should acquire the mind of Christ. And if we are talking about acquiring the mind of Christ, it means there's a mindset we ought to have in order to express the kind of higher life form that we are. Sawa sawa? And the reason why that is important, like I said, there are so many things you will encounter that will attempt to redefine what your identity is. And if you don't understand what you're standing on, anything will go. And that anything that will go will redefine your destination eventually. We're only here on this earth for a time. And don't think that this season of your life doesn't matter. It matters greatly the decisions that you will make from here on in terms of determining the outcome of your life. I will go to the second question, which is, where did I come from? Somebody tell me, give me an answer to that question.
I signed a divine contract with God long before I was born to this world with a human body. My spirit existed even before I was born. So me coming to this world, I was given a chance to come to this world, find myself and awaken my highest spirit.
Amen. Amen. That's an accurate definition of where you came from. You didn't come from Kariandutu. The true address of where we came from, at the very core, is God. And why is that important? Like I mentioned, life experiences have a way of defining to us who we are. And if we don't work towards formatting the thoughts that we have adopted along the way, we are likely to shortchange ourselves. We might have come from a background where, one will say, I wish God placed me in a different family. Maybe mali kulikuwa na do, ama mali ya kukukuwa na hii. Maybe you went through some kind of abuse when you were growing up, not of your choice, just the environment that you found yourself in. And that has affected how you see yourself. It has affected how you process life. Because whether you like it or not, the traumas that we go through have a way of impacting our definition of self. And that's why I began by saying there are important life questions that we must ask early so that we can redefine them early, so that we can work towards adopting a kind of mindset that is in line with tapping into the greatness that is there. Iko ndani hata kama hujaipata. Whatever it is that you're called to do, God considers it great. Whether you stand before 1,000 people or you may never stand before 1,000 people is not the point. Whether you become famous or not is not the point. The point is this, that whatever you are wired for on this earth, while you're yet alive, you will be able to tap into that. You will be able at this point to begin to define your vision. It may not be 100% clear, that you will begin to write certain things down. Even if you may have to polish them as time goes by, be clear about your destination so that you're not detoured off the path. So that suggestions that come, unaziangalia against my vision. How will this affect the kind of destination that I want out of life? How will a relationship with Ochieng affect the kind of destination that I am looking for? How will my association with Janet affect the kind of destination that I am looking for? Why? Because also relationships are a key part of affecting, influencing the kind of people we become. It is said, birds of a feather. Another man said, show me who your friends are, and I will tell you who you are. Relationships matter. Associations matter. You have no business impressing anybody on this earth. We are not here to impress people. We are here to carry out the core assignment we've been given. We are here to express the uniqueness that God has given us. And that's what in part gives us the confidence to say no. And when we find it hard to say no, that's what gives us the confidence to approach people like Madam Tabitha and say, I'm having this challenge and I don't know how to go about it. Why? Because you're clear about the kind of bright future that you want. So if you experience a challenge, you won't just sit, enter a place of stress and say, hata ni kama hii mambo imekuwa mzito, wacha niende nitafute kama there's an easier option out. No, you will fight for what you believe in. If we are going to format the software, this software that we have, if we are going to format the kind of thoughts that we have, we must understand on which foundation we are standing. We must understand the why of life. You must understand, who am I? Why am I here? And what is my definition of success? And again, where did I come from? So that when all these questions are answered, even when you go through dark chapters in your life, you will not settle for anything less than the kind of destination that God has for you. Sindio? So I want to mention a few things that help us to identify the purpose that we have. Pointers of purpose. What are some of the things that help us to know where what our unique gift is. Yes? Our ability, that's true. Skills and abilities, they are things that we naturally find easy to do. Another pointer? Yes? Yes, talents are another thing that help us to identify the uniqueness that we carry. Something else? So another thing that helps is having a mentor. If you can, have a mentor. Because they're able to see in you things that sometimes you can't see in yourself. Because sometimes we've gone through certain life experiences and our identity and even sense of self-awareness is buried under the issues. Like I mentioned, some of those may come from background, others will just come from different quarters. So when you have a mentor, they're able to easily see and pick out some of the things that are buried or hidden, that are hidden in you. The other thing about having a mentor is, apart from the gifts, the talents, the abilities, they are able to see certain areas of your character that, if it's not dealt with, can compromise on the quality of life that you will live. So they will bring you, they will correct you. They will put you on the right path. The other thing is prayer. Why prayer? Because like we said, it's only the manufacturer of a thing that truly knows and understands the reason of existence of that thing. So we pray and we ask God, God, order my steps in the right direction. Open my eyes so that I can see the reason why I'm here. And that question may not always be answered in a day. It can be answered in a couple of years. It can be answered in a couple of months. But there's no prayer that God does not answer when it is prayed in line with His will. Sindio? So I want us to focus a little bit on some of the things that are, we would call purpose inhibitors. Things that keep us from becoming the kind of people that God ordained for us to become. One of those, I will say, is trauma. And that word trauma encapsulates a lot of things. Like I said, a girl or a boy might have gone through sexual molestation when they were young. That kind of experience does not leave you the same. I remember one time, I had gone to a certain school at Mukuru kwa Jenga. It was a small structure with a few children there. And there's this one child who would not look up. And he constantly look, yani hata ukiongea useme nini, anaangalia chini. And later I asked the teacher, what is it about this child that haangalii, do they have a problem? And he said this particular child, who was about 7 years at the time, had been raped by a friend of the mother's and contracted HIV. And a man had gone to see the mother and found the mother was not there, and just found the child, took advantage of the child, packed his belongings, and by the next day alikuwa amehama. Another time, that child was molested by another man. Now you tell me the reason why that child cannot look up, even if there are many things that child does not understand, somewhere in their psyche, somewhere in their subconscious brain, there's a sense of identity that has been greatly damaged. And there are things that if that child does not go through the right hands in counseling and in certain processes of healing, it is hard for that child to emerge in a certain way. And some of the people who are greatly targeted are people who have the brightest stars. So when you go through certain experiences, they don't leave you the same. And if you don't go through certain hands that will help you go through healing, it will affect the kind of person you become. Whatever it is that you have gone through, just as I have said, it's good to seek help. And here we have Madam Tabitha, we have Madam Sylvia that can help you with the questions that you have. Usinyamazie mambo ambayo inakusumbua. Because God has given you an opportunity for you to be here for a reason. There are others who were defiled by, like a man being defiled by a man, or a lady being defiled by a lady. You find someone struggling with masturbation because they were defiled by a house girl when they were young. And now they have an addiction for masturbation. So si kitu It's not something they willingly decided to try out. But something happened to them as a child that started a pattern. And now their sense of identity is lost because of the things they have gone through. They try to get out, but they don't know how. But this thing brings shame, it brings guilt, it is affecting how they see themselves. So unapata, it's easy for other people to sway you to the left or to the right because you're trying to deal with a sense of rejection that you feel. So you feel the need to please people so that you can be accepted. But there's help, like I mentioned. And even after you've gone through guidance and counseling, which might be a journey, there are things that you can be taken through that will help you come out of it, because you may not come out of it in a day. Some of the sexual perversions that people are struggling with, addictions, they have a certain root, and it's not something you can overcome in a day, because ikona mizizi. It's a stronghold in the mind. It has affected the emotions and has affected so much. So in order to be able to deal with it, it's a journey that you may not arrive in a day. But if you set in your mind and say, God, I want to come out because I know you have a brighter thing for me, then you begin that journey. Now, we may not go in depth into the conversation of overcoming trauma, but I'm just highlighting some of these things because I don't know where you're coming from. It is possible to have a new beginning. And I would also want to add, now that we are here, you might not know all the people you will meet and the friends that you will make. Be careful. Be careful that relationships do not begin to define you negatively. From today's conversation, define where you want to go. And don't let anything detour you. You may go through things that might break your heart. That might be relationships, that might be other experiences. But make sure nothing removes you from that path. There is nothing that you cannot recover from if in your mind you understand there is a destination that you must get to. And that life is a finite privilege. Time is a finite resource. A time will come and you will run out of this thing called time. What do you want to look back and see? Do you want to see a buildup of regrets? Or do you want to see a buildup of decisions that led you somewhere? That when you go through disappointment because you tried something, na haikufika mahali ulikuwa unataka, you tried again. Purpose inhibitors in the area of sex. Now that we are adults and we are above 18, and now you're at that age where you can make certain decisions to say yes or say no. I want you to know that things, we live in a culture where sex and sexual perversion has been so normalized. It has been normalized by the media. It has been normalized by culture. If you don't understand the repercussions of these things and you think this is just a fling, it's a feel-good moment, and you don't understand the depth of how sex affects you and you're reckless with it, that's another thing that can keep you from fully becoming the person that God ordained for you. Casual sex does not leave you the same. Lesbianism, gayism does not leave you the same. It does not. And there are things, if you have not engaged in up to this point, do not even attempt. Na mtu akikusumbua, just go to the authorities, go to Madam Tabitha, just talk to someone, but don't fall into that trap. And if you had already found yourself in there, seek help. These things have deeper repercussions than the media leads you to believe. Sawa, we said some of the purpose inhibitors are relationships. Number 2, there's environment. The kind of environment you allow yourself to be in will influence the choices that you make, and by extension, the kind of outcome that you will have. Another thing that inhibits us from becoming the best versions of who God ordained for us to become. Yes?
Fear.
Yes. Fear.
Naweza sema the kind of information you feed your subconscious, what you feed your subconscious will reflect. Alafu pia on the issue of relationship, nilikuwa na try kwa kusema relationship tunakwenda toxic sababu si kitu light as you nisema, sababu kuna kwenda na ku-entertain hizo electric forces.
Yes, like I mentioned, although today the conversation is not about sex. However, sex is a deep thing. It is a spiritual thing, and it will affect your spirituality, affect your emotions, affect your thoughts. So we are living at a time where people will proudly tell you, "I've slept with this number of people," like it's an accolade, and it's not. If you understand how it affects you, like I've said, spiritually, biologically, mentally, emotionally, then you will not trivialize the impact that sex has on you. So that if I find myself here and there are things I've engaged in, either because I didn't get a very good start as far as the subject of sex is concerned, by that I mean maybe you went through abuse, or you were in wrong associations that made sex look a certain type of way, and you have found yourself engaging in things before their time, you can start on a journey of saying, I want a different life for myself. Sex is a beautiful thing, but in the right context. What is the right context?
To me, the right context is maybe having sex na sana machinezi yako.
Allah.
Maybe coming I'm celibate. Try to have sex. So you just pick on a random chick and a
Asante sana. Someone else would like to define for me the right context. Yes.
Sex before marriage is a sin.
Yes.
And the wages of sin is
Death. Thank you so much. Yes.
Right. Okay. In this 21st century, we should be told the truth.
Yes.
Of course, he's right.
Sex
should be done in marriage. But I can't promise that I'm going to tell my children that you should have sex during the marriage. Because what I'm going to tell them to stop doing, the ones they're going to do. What I hinder them from doing is what they're going to do.
Okay, so let me ask a question. If I tell my children not to engage in heroin, would I be wrong in telling them achana na usijaribu heroin? Would I be wrong? Swali ni, mama tu, but I have a question. Is it not my responsibility to explain why sex outside a certain context is not okay? Like, it's not enough to just say, wachana na, like, don't try heroin. That it's important for me to explain why they should not engage in drugs. So in the same context, isn't it right for me to give a holistic understanding of the purpose of sex? Because sex is not bad. See, we said sex is not bad. We said what is bad? It is the context that determines whether it is good or bad. Because beyond sin, we have said, the impact sex has on you is not just a matter of right and wrong. It is how it will affect your body, your mind, your spirituality. It affects you 360. Tunaelewana? So si ile manze ukifanya hivi utaenda hell. It's bigger. I don't know that to say it's bigger. Na kwa sababu kuna watu walifanya vituko na by the way walienda heaven, na sisemi tufanye vituko kama Daudi kwa Biblia. I'm just giving you an example, and I am not saying then we be reckless, but I am saying there are repercussions. When we read the story of Samson, who I believe might be in heaven, were there repercussions in what he did? When we read about David, he's in heaven, but were there repercussions for what he did? So it's not a matter of just rightness and wrongness, unaweza enda mbinguni, but what are the repercussions you will experience while you're here on earth because of reckless decisions? It's deeper than just a matter of hell and heaven. And yes, hell and heaven is a big matter, but you get what I mean. It won't just affect your afterlife. It will affect you while you are here. There's a woman you will sleep with and I tell you, your life will not be the same. Na utajua ni nini li happen. Sex is a very spiritual thing. Unaweza kuwa Mungu akuinua ufike certain heights, even in wealth. You sleep with one woman and you're reduced to nothing. Sex is not a casual encounter. You know, okay, but I'll say something before I take in more questions. But here's the thing. Sasa, kwa sababu tuseme kuna TV nimeona kwa super, na naitaka, na sina do. Will I go and steal? Will I go and steal? Why won't my first, you know, apart from morality, the issue of morality, ni sababu gani ingine inaweza fanya nisitoe around na the idea of taking that TV without paying?
Vile nasema life ni personal, like kila mtu ako na DNA yake, so hadi kwa hizi shughuli zote, like kila mtu akifanya kitu anafanya because of her own purpose, so tusigeneralize kitu.
Yeah.
Sema ndio anafanya immorality zote.
Hapo sawa. Mi ile kitu nitasema ni hivi. Amesema nini? Life is personal. What you do with what you've had today is up to you. Why? Because the repercussion of your choices will be personal. But there's something he mentioned. The decisions you make will also affect your children. Usiseme sisi ni wewe na nani. Ulikuja peke yako, and when you're exiting this life, hata watoto wako wakupende aje, bibi yako wakupende aje, bwana wako wakupende, you will exit alone vile ulikam. So life is personal, and what you do with the information you receive, whether in class, whether in a session like this, it is up to you. There are things that you can set up in your life that can help you to live a better life. But if you choose to say, mi ni youth, mi ni young, wacha nifanye kile tunataka, let me test things the way I want, it is up to you. When we read the Bible, for example, I've had here, we prayed, we quoted some scriptures. We see that in the Bible, whatever happened to David was personal, but we see it affecting their lineage. We say, David alikuwa na mabibi wangapi? Hata wako wamefika 20. How many did Solomon have? Na concubines wangapi? How was his end? He started well, but when you read the Bible vizuri, he didn't end well. He lost so much towards the end of his life. So much so that he wrote the book we call Ecclesiastes, where he says vanity of vanities. Go like, mzae ulifikaje hapa? Kusema vanity, maisha ni vanity. A man who had access to everything that he wanted. He tested so many things, and towards the end of his life, he said, vanity of vanities. And towards the end of that book, the book of Ecclesiastes, he says, I have come to this conclusion. After enjoying the things that I've enjoyed on earth, after living in the wisdom that God has given me, I have come to this one conclusion, that man exists for one reason, to serve God and to know God. That's the only reason man exists. This comes from the man who had so many wives, a man who had so much wealth, a man who had access to anything that he wanted. And after enjoying all those things, he came back to this one conclusion. Only one thing is necessary in this life. Discover who you are in God. Know God. Pursue God. Whatever becomes of your life, hii marking scheme ipeleke ukiwa 80 years. And then see whether the life you lived. And some things, it's better that you do them now. Yani you close your eyes, see yourself on a porch somewhere. Ama mali holiday destination, wewe una imagine one time God akikubariki utaenda. Ujimagine uko hapo na uko kitu 80 years, 90. Mungu amekubariki, amekupatia miaka yote. What are you seeing when you look back retrospectively? Ni nini unaona ukiangalia hiyo maisha, tuseme hata 60, from the time you were 20 to that 80? Ni nini unataka kuangalia uone? Because everybody, usually, before you check out, if God blesses you with old age, you will reflect on your life and the choices you made, and how some of those choices will affect your children. Because it is true, the reason why some children struggle with some things, ilianza na mzazi. Mtu mwingine ana struggle na last sana, kwa sababu mzae alikuwa design fulani na hakudeal na hizo issues. So hizo issues ina affect mtoi. So why can't you decide, I will be the change that I want to see in my children. I will make steps from here to transform so that my children don't have to struggle with the things I've struggled with, because I didn't even understand the genesis of where these struggles were coming from. Why do I feel the need to do certain things? Mbona na feel need ya kulala na wanaume? Some of those things are inherited. Like I said, sex is deep. Your children can struggle with certain things. Pornography, because you opened that door. And now your children are struggling with... Mtu yako 5 years, ashaanza kuwatch porn. And we are living in a day where gadgets are available. Sometimes hata utajua mtoi wako anaangalia nini kwa hiyo gadget. Ujue anafanya nini akiwa shule. You decide to be, you can't 100% determine the decisions that your children will make. But why can't you make those decisions that you can? Do your part. Leave God to do the rest. The Bible says, raise up a child in the way he should go. And when he is old, he will not depart from it. What does that mean? Akiamua mahali anataka kuwa kichwa ngumu, ajaribu vitu zenye ulimwambia hii na hii ukifanya, outcome yake si poa, itaenda hivi na hivi. Utaambia God, mimi mazeni nilifanya part yangu. Huyu mrudishe kwa ile path yenye nilimuonyesha. But if you did not instill those things in your children, what foundation will you say you give that child? Ama utasema tu, ningemfunza angerebel, ndicho sahi yako kwa heroin. Ningemfunza angerebel, ndicho sahi yako koinange. It's not a right mindset. And it is not wrong to ask, but I'm just saying, you cannot avoid certain things on the basis that man meaning human being, is naturally rebellious. Because there are also some who walked the right path because somebody showed them the way. And they decided to stay on that path. Sindio?